Welcome everyone. Our guest today is Karthik Srinivasan. You might have seen Karthik on LinkedIn dissecting ads and advertising. He's my favorite source of discovering whatever's new and happening in the world of marketing. He's also one of the few people in the world whose opinion on marketing I respect. And that's because he's one of the few people who's worked on both sides of the aisle. He's worked at Flipkart in branding and he's worked on the agency side with Ogilvy and Edelman. Now, of course, as he very happily reminds us, he's gone freelance, he's independent, he owns his own time. He spends it being an independent communication strategy consultant and a lot of it helping corporates figure out their personal branding. Thank you so much for taking time out, Karthik. It's a pleasure. Let's dive right in. All right, cool. Okay, so Karthik, you're the LinkedIn account that I follow to keep abreast of what's happening in the world of marketing and advertising. I must say you do a big service to all of us who've not been able to keep abreast with what's happening in this world. And I love both the curation of ads that you pick and your dissection of them. But I also have a pet peeve that a lot of people in the world believe that advertising is marketing. I believe it's a lot more.
Yep.
But I want to start by asking you, what is marketing?
Marketing is a much broader term, of course. It's just ways to create interest in a product or a service. That's about it, which can happen pre-advertising, pre-marketing. That is, even the steps you take towards creating that interest. That is to first identify who do you want to interest in the first place.
Yeah.
What kind of people. That's also part of marketing. But at the bottom line, it's just creating interest in a product or a service, or yourself also, whichever it is. That's marketing.
Personal brand.
Literally.
Yes. And if that's marketing, then what's a brand?
Brand is a unique, identifiable set of traits that people associate with something, which need not be a brand per se. It can also be a person. For instance, when we talk of Nehru coat, it's actually a brand. I mean, he didn't invent that coat at all. He just wore it more often, and he probably branded it himself, saying Nehru coat. So it became a Nehru coat kind of stuff.
Even the Nehru cap.
Nehru cap, exactly. It became a Nehru cap for some reason. And then the Shah Rukh Khan's arm outstretched. We call it Shah Rukh Khan movement kind of stuff. So everything, that's also a brand. Something uniquely identifiable with something specific or a person or a product or a service becomes a brand, as simple as that.
And have you thought of why brands came to exist in the first place? It's an invention, right? It's not a discovery. It's
man-made invention.
It's a man-made invention.
Yes.
Why did we feel the need to have brands?
It helps in terms of recall, number one. Best example is probably Coca-Cola. You see red color in a bottle shape, the first thing you remember is a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Even though there are many other brands which have a red color bottle kind of stuff, but it's just that memory is built into that, the recall wise, you think of Coca-Cola. So it just helps ask for something specific, and the brand really helps. If you just ask for bread, you will get 10 different kinds of bread.
Yeah.
But you need to point out specifically, I want this bread, Britannia bread or ID bread, then you're getting somewhere closer. Similar with people actually. You always have one person who sings very well like Kishore Kumar in your office.
Yeah.
Or you know at least one person who hates one kind of food. Or one person who has a very, very vocal kind of laugh that you can identify anywhere in your office or school kind of stuff. Everything is a brand. So it is just memory structures that you create around this means this. That's as simple as a brand.
And I've always, I used to work at Unilever at that time. Also, I felt it, and now on the other side, I feel it very strongly that actually marketeers as a bunch don't have a very good image in the world. Primarily because people inherently understand that these guys know how to manipulate me.
Yep.
Right? Like these guys can sit in one corner, make one, ad film or some packaging or something, and it'll make me change my behavior.
Yes.
In a way that I didn't intend to, perhaps. Right? So one of the criticisms of marketeers and marketing is it's actually manipulation at scale, and actually manipulation in ways that you understand me better than I understand, myself. And food companies have been accused of it a lot, right? Like they understand my biology so well that they know that if I combine sugar, salt and fat in a certain ratio, then you cannot resist having this, right? Like no matter what your rational brain is telling you. At a philosophical level, as someone who's been a marketeer both inside a big org and inside an advertising agency, where do you see us as a community? marketers as a community? Do you think we are doing a good job of being a net positive to society, or are we being a net negative to society?
Somewhere in between, I would say. That also depends on what is being marketed, not necessarily how it's being marketed, but also what. So the pet peeve generally sugar, alcohol, excess salt, and etc. If it is, particularly of course cigarettes, which were marketed the most insidious way at the turn of the century, because younger kids were introduced cigarettes at a much earlier time. They became users and they turned more into users and etc. So that's a very insidious way to look at it. So what is being marketed is as important as how it is being marketed, but the lines are grey. You really can't say something is wrong because the government has allowed it. You can market it, you can't market it basically, but it's there. But in terms of scale, yes. So the effect is pretty insidious across from a society point of view. But as I said earlier, it's a brand building exercise. That is, we are creating new mental pathways to remember this means that. We all do that at personal levels basically, because we influence our children, we influence our spouse by saying this restaurant is good, and the spouse also thinks on a similar level. If he who I love likes that, I might also like that kind of stuff. So she might have a different point of view, but because I like it, she will be mentally thinking, saying, okay, we both like it, kind of stuff. So that happens. And kids generally take after their parents. Whatever parents like, they like till a certain age, till they reach teens. And then they want everything to do against the parent. And then they come back at 30s or 40s, going back to their nostalgia and thinking, oh, my parents love that song, I love this song too. But there is a place in between where they don't want to anything to do with the parental interest at all. And then they come back to it. So we all indulge in manipulation and engineering others' beliefs and perspectives, but marketing does it on a scale like nobody else.
So that's a very interesting point, because I agree. So my favorite definition of marketing is it's behavior change at scale, right? Like I can nudge you to do something different at scale. And you're right that we are all trying to push our beliefs, our way of living onto whatever our circle of influence is. Marketers just have learned the science of making a much bigger circle of influence. But the difference is there are cases like parents where the perpetrator of the belief actually believes that this is good for the person receiving it. Whereas in marketing, chances are the perpetrator believes it's good for me. Might not be good for you. Right? And hence
they know it well.
They know it well. And the other field that has this large reach is actually journalism. Right. And now we are seeing these lines blur. Right. Like especially in the American elections, you can see what's marketing and what's journalism is just like overlapped. But at least journalism used to have, still has some internal code of conduct. Some, they seem to view their profession as a, elevated thing where they must, stand for the truth and communicate the right thing. Whether they do it or not is a different thing. Just like doctors have an oath that they take. There's no such thing for marketers, right?
Like there is no oath, there is no guidelines. It's only the government regulations that matter to them. Either they abide by it or not abide by it.
So it's
there is nothing internal.
Which is my peeve, that there is only letter of law. And as long as I'm on the right side of the letter of law, there's no spirit. Right? Whereas all in professions where as a society we recognize the power that these professions hold over us, be it a doctor or a journalist, we created a code of conduct which is about the spirit, not just the letter. Right? Like you will self-regulate. Internally there will be some people who will be sitting on a high moral horse and judging people that, this fellow has gotten sold out. But that's not like in marketing, because
it doesn't matter at all.
We've not collectively had this chat that, guys, marketing most probably is affecting much more of what we think today than religion or journalism or anything else.
Very true.
Right?
Very true. So there is no internal code at all. Even if people don't want to work on a particular kind of product because their personal beliefs are different, they still indulge in it actually. Aram say. They might also not be users of the product. They don't at all. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't smoke, but they work on cigarette campaigns. A lot of people who are teetotalers, but they work on alcohol campaigns.
100%.
So it doesn't matter to anybody at all generally.
It's like, for a company like Unilever, the brand managers all are like me, right? Like 24, 25-year-old, top B school grads, earning a decent amount, having coffee in Indranagar, none of them is, using Rin to wash their clothes.
Correct.
Or, Fair and Lovely at home. So, in most cases, they're not users. In fact, this is a big virtue that's called out, within these large orgs, that your ability to be as comfortable in a London or a Lakhimpur, your ability to live in the big city but still have that connect with rural India, which is large part of your audience, is a big capability that's called out, that you should have that ability to make the transition and do it. But there equally so many of them, like in private, will tell me that we'd never feed our kids the stuff that we are marketing. Right? So, yeah, it makes me wonder why there is no debate in the industry of self-regulating, when clearly there is a moral conflict going on between the people doing it and what they're doing. There is a big conflict.
True.
But I guess we are not going to solve that in a
No, not at all.
in a
There's
podcast.
no answer to that, actually. Yeah.
So let's move on to something more concrete. I started with advertising because that, in my head, that's what I relate you most to, that you're my source for great advertising. And advertising is a large part of marketing, but it's also craft. You're creating a film, right? That's why it's called an ad film.
Correct.
In fact, I would say it's a much tougher craft than creating a 2-hour film.
True.
Because in 30 seconds you have to say so
Everything,
much,
yeah, you need to
etc.
say
Right?
everything,
So, give me your framework on how do you judge an ad? What's a good ad and what's a bad ad?
It's very personal, actually. The one thing that I don't do is try to decide whether it will work or not. Because I have absolutely no
clue.
source of any data from any brand manager or ad agency whether it's working on an ongoing basis. And how do you even define work?
Yeah.
Did they mean sales? Did they mean footfall? Did they mean brand recognition? I have no clue at all. I don't know the brief. Even if I knew the brief, it doesn't even matter at all to me as a third person outside the circle of the agency and the brand that did it. They have their own goals for that. I'm an outsider, and so I don't bother with predicting whether this works. It's like the Hindi cinema movie critics like Taran Adarsh saying, "Ye film 100 crore karegi." Come on, yaar. How does it even matter? Ye 100 crore karegi ya 200 crore karegi? It doesn't even matter at all. So don't bother into that at all. I just look at whether it stops me in my tracks or not, and then it makes me think about it or not. Those are the only two things that matter to me. And does it say something differently? Because the toughest thing are the most common categories like shampoo, soap, etc., to say something different, because everything that can be said has already been said. So how would you make people stop while selling just a shampoo or just a soap or just a cereal? Is there some other storytelling? So I don't look at them as advertising at all. I just look at them as stories and basic piece of communication. So communication is as simple as me talking to you. So even the words that I use would make you stop and think. For instance, if somebody asks me, how are you? I don't say good. I always say cannot be better.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly believe I cannot be better.
Yeah.
Privileged and very happy with life generally. But every time people hear cannot be better, they're just taken aback for a second, saying, this person actually said cannot be better?
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah.
That's also communication. That's the equivalent of advertising.
Yeah.
It makes you stop in your tracks.
Yeah.
So that's what I look at, the cannot be better equivalent in ads, basically. Does it make me stop or not? That's my first yardstick. And then I realize and try to explore, why did it stop me? There has to be something in the story that made me stop. Maybe in the beginning or the end or the overall thing.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
And try to help people understand. So when I first started writing about this, I mean, which you call dissection or dissection, whatever it is, quite a few senior people in the ad agency said, why are you spoiling the ad for people? Why do you literally write about the script and what happened in the ad? We can watch it and understand ourselves. No. And then I had to actually tell him that 99% of the people don't even bother to go into the details. They just see an ad for ad's sake. कुछ product बेच रहे हैं बस, that's it. Only when I point it out do more people come out of the woodwork and say thank you for pointing that out. Otherwise I would have missed it. To me that felt obvious, but now in hindsight it's not obvious at all. Very few people notice the details that go into it. And there are some details that even the ad makers didn't intend at all. I come up with it, and I think Tanmay made this joke saying Karthik comes up with things that even we didn't think of. And wo bol raha hai, etc. So So it helps. So it's just a perspective. That's about it. So I don't go into the predictions at all. I just enjoy watching things that are done differently, which makes you stop in your tracks.
Amazing.
Why did it stop in your tracks? That's the question.
First of all, I think you do a great service, so please don't stop doing it.
I just enjoy doing it myself.
Yeah, it's lovely. Mostly you do a great service when you enjoy doing
Correct.
what you're doing, so please don't stop. Second, I love that analogy of, anything that makes you stop and wonder. And my answer to that question of how you're doing is never been busier or happier.
Correct.
And again, it makes people think, these two things seem contradictory.
Yeah.
How is it that
Correct.
they're happening at the same time?
Yeah.
But there are actually two completely opposing schools of thought on this one, right? So there is this, you are on the attention grabbing side of it, that do something that makes me sit up and take notice, right? And whatever it takes. And for me, the epitome of that is like the cred ads.
Correct.
Right? Like just like they are
Not all. Maybe the Rahul Dravid one.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of it.
And
all.
even we'll make the Indian cricket team sing a song while they are on the clouds.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they take it to one extreme
Correct.
of you
Correct. Total
cannot
extreme. Yeah.
ignore
Yeah.
this, right? There is the other school of thought, which is again the Unilever, P&G, old school of thought, that okay, you grabbed my attention, but if you do it 20 different times in 20 completely different ways, then what's the memory structure that you're building, right? Like what is the compounding impact of these 20 pieces of advertising? What I am hence going to do is every time there's a Dettol ad, there is going to be this kid, there is going to be this mother, there is going to be this guy with a lab coat, the setting will be a familiar setting, the colors will be a certain palette,
Yep.
and it might be a boring ad. So let's say only 20% of the people who would see a cred ad will see this ad. But when I keep playing it over the years at a certain frequency, etc., it will keep building
Correct.
memory structures over time, and that's the job of advertising, because there is an argument to be made that does a cred ad make you remember Rahul Dravid or cred?
Or cred, yeah.
Like, and what does cred do? And
We
all
have no
that
idea
stuff,
still.
right?
Yeah. Abhi tak. Sorry, Kunal.
So, have you seen, I'm not going to ask you which side of the spectrum you like. Have you seen, do you have some examples of people who do a balance of this well?
I don't think you need to do a balance at all, because what you spoke on this side, which is functional communication done repetitively, that's a remnant of the TV media buy plan, basically. So you just bombard people again and again with the same thing. My classic example is the Airtel ads that used to come 10 years ago. The Airtel girl became very popular, and she became more popular than Airtel itself, because everybody remembered her. Sasha Chetri, I think, if I remember her name. She was all over the place, and people recognized her saying Airtel wala girl. So it used to come, and every 5 minutes during a break, during a match, and whole world was seeing the same match, at least in India. Everybody was watching the same match in the same channel, and that's there. But now, 10 years hence, we don't live in a media monoculture anymore. I mean, we have stopped living in a media monoculture at least 15 years ahead now, basically. It was in the mid 2000s and early 2010s it ended, basically. I mean, satellite TV was one death knell for media monoculture. OTT, completely different death knell, and internet and social media killed media monoculture completely. Now, we don't unify in watching something at all as a country. Everybody is watching everything else at the same time. So the next day morning discussions are 10 different things instead of one humlog or one match or one big political event at all. So those days are gone. So marketers with functional communication like the Dettol, Vim, Rin stuff, which just communicates what the product does in the most normal, boring, everyday manner. I mean, it should not be boring, it's just everyday manner. Cannot expect the same output or outcome in terms of memory structures changing or behavior changing that they expected back in the media monoculture. No matter how much you bombard, you are not bombarding on the channels where people are actually watching, because you don't know what they're watching. They're watching anything and everything on the net, basically. So these days, most ads don't interrupt your attention at all. They are actually ones that you want to watch because somebody in your circle said this is good to watch. And you actually search on YouTube and go and watch. Most people have YouTube Premium, at least those who care, they don't watch at all, or you just completely overlook the ad that is running on YouTube just to wait for what's coming next. You don't watch at all. On TV, that was not the case. You have to sit in front of it. When more channels came, you at least switched channels and came back to whatever channels. But now you just don't care at all. So functional communication is clearly out. It's a waste of time anyway. So it has to stop you in your tracks. But even within that, the cred ads took it to another extreme basically because it was so bizarre and so removed from the product usage context. For instance, if the usage context was somebody was trying to pay their credit card bill and then Rahul Dravid went apeshit, it at least makes you remember there is a connection between both. But Rahul Dravid went apeshit because he can, because cred can afford to make him do that. That's about it. All I remember is he's calling himself Indiranagar ka Gunda right outside this road. And that's the only thing I remember. I don't even remember credit card or bill payment or anything at all to do with that. So chances are that more people remember cred, but they still don't know what cred does basically. So that's another extreme. There has to be a good balance in between. That works well actually.
I agree with you. I think in today's day and age, if you can't break clutter and grab my attention, doesn't matter how consistent your advertising was, because I'm not going to see it.
Correct.
So attention grabbing is P1 for sure.
Correct.
But once you've done it, I'm seeing a lot of people just let go of the responsibility of then, once you've done it, build some consistent structures. Like maybe, you know, all of your ads are in one setting, right? Everything inside keeps changing, but setting एक ही है. Yeah, at least log same है. या कुछ एक phrase same है. Like something that connects.
Which is brand. Which is brand building.
Exactly.
But it's also necessary that attention grabbing device is in service of your brand or your product or your behavior change that you want. If it's not in service of that, then it's the equivalent of somebody just tearing their clothes off and running. People will watch because it's unusual. What's the big deal?
I think a JK Cement ad or which one, where there's a girl in a bikini walking out of
completely no point at all. Why is she walking in a bikini in a JK Cement ad and she watches a billboard JK Cement? What does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything.
That's the logical extreme of this.
Correct. Attention grabbing.
Attention grab. Okay. Here we go.
Correct. It's attention grab, obviously, because we are human. We watch it. There is an equivalent adage in journalism which called man bites dog versus dog bites man. If it's dog bites man, nobody reads that headline. But if it's man bites dog, people will notice, oh, man bit a dog, kya ho raha hai, etc. So you need to use it responsibly. Okay, you got your attention. So where are you directing that attention towards? Is it towards something true or really happened, or is it a clickbait equivalent where you're just wasting that attention on something?
And I think this is the reason why, you know, the Tanmays of the world are actually overtaking the old agency culture, because
they know how to grab attention.
Really comedians know how to grab attention. Where do you see ads nowadays? Like, made it your job to find them.
Watch them.
But by you, I mean people in your circles. Where do they see advertising? Like,
they don't see ads at all. Which is the biggest shock actually. They just don't see ad at all. They see ads on demand, like OTT programs, because somebody suggested it. In fact, more people see ads on LinkedIn than on any other platform 100%. And on posts, not even on ads basically. So that's where everybody sees. Even a print ad, somebody speaks about it on LinkedIn and then they actually see it, which is the example of that Flipkart ad recently. More people have seen it than the Times of India circulation itself on LinkedIn, which is the irony of it all. So that's also been a tactic that people allege, that you do something so outrageous in print, where the intended audience is not print at all, it's actually the online audience. You get to them through that kind of stuff. I don't believe that's the thing.
It's a very
at least the Flipkart
hack.
ad was, you can't. I mean, the Flipkart ad minutes was a 4-page jacket. You don't spend so much money on a jacket just to ensure that people talk about it on LinkedIn. ऐसे तो नहीं है. People still see it, of course. There are many people who are not on LinkedIn. There are a lot of people who are not on LinkedIn at all in India. And they see the Flipkart ad, the jacket one where you pour water and erase something, blah, blah, etc. That happens. So that's it. But there is a problem that many people don't see ads at all.
And hence, while it's a very abused word, is content the answer? What people call content is like a...
Even ads are content.
And you spew out any shit on your social media, it's not content.
I know. People call it content.
Call it content. But is that... I guess that's the only answer. That, and hence, if you're a brand, if you don't know how to say things that people want to hear in ways that will grab their attention,
correct,
then you're dead in the water.
True.
No agency can save you.
Correct. Every single touch point should think from the point of view of, is this man bites dog or not? That's the filter, literally. If it's not, then there's no point. And you can invent touch points yourself, like your own package text on it kind of stuff. In fact, I was just seeing, I mean, your package text or paper boat package text are very thoughtful and precise. They are done for a very specific reason. And you don't do functional communication even on a package text.
Yeah.
Every single word is vetted. Of course, not the current paperboard, which has gone into bottles and everything. The earlier paperboard, which used to be very good. So that's one spectrum where you use language in a precise, thoughtful manner to grab attention, the equivalent of man bites dog.
Yeah.
You don't need to always use language. It can come from your ethos also. For instance, there is this local brand called Adukale. Adukale makes, Adukale, it's a very nice brand, local brand. You just pick up something here. They make sweets and savories, packaged, etc. It's very nicely done. They don't use English or language to attract your attention. They use people, place, time as a way to tell their story in the package. So there is a specific thing they say that this is a heritage of Sanketi Brahmins from Mysore.
Yeah.
We are like this, we are like this, we like this. Food is one of our important thing, and that's why we thought we will bring it to you, kind of. So you are able to grab the context of who these people are, where they belong, which time they belong, what they like, and then their heritage is carried on the pack. So that's a very different way to grab attention. Both work really well. But the point is you need to think about it. No functional communication at all.
At all, yeah.
In fact, there's a famous ex-Ogilvy creative director. He became 50 plus, 60 plus, and I think Ogilvy threw him out, literally. And he still has grudges against Ogilvy. His name is George Tenenbaum. He is very popular on LinkedIn, does a very good job. He's on his own now, very happily on his own. So he has a pet theory that even if you're leaving a note for your wife that you're taking your dog for a walk, you don't just say that I'm taking the dog for a walk. You need to say something differently. Or if you'll be back by 6, instead of saying, I'll be back by 6, you need to say, I'll be back by 6.7. And your wife will be wondering, why 7? It makes her think. So even a smallest thing make them think differently. But it takes a lot of effort
and thought and care. Actually, I have a theory on this, like on the packaging bit first of all, right? Like in a world where reaching you is so tough, my package is the one surface that you paid for.
And captive audience.
And it's captive, you will see it.
Correct.
Right? What a waste if I can't put thought into that.
I'm actually predisposed not to see it because I expect it not to be different. But if it's different,
you will 100%.
People will notice it. Best example is Paperboat's back of the pack text.
Yes.
Because you finish drinking it by chance, if you notice the back, there is a text there.
There is a joy.
Where do they have
discovery.
it? They have it because they can.
And the second one is, theoretically, in a world where clutter is going up and up, coherence will stand out.
True.
Right? So but you can't be coherent across surfaces, touch points, etc. If you're not anchored in something, right? Like you need to be anchored in a philosophy, in who you are, in some idea, etc. If you don't have that, you don't have coherence. If you don't have coherence in a cluttered world, you can't stand out, at least not consistently over a long period of time. Then I've always believed actually that, unlike what marketeers think, people are intelligent because we are people. And I don't think that I'm stupid. Neither are other people. They're just busy. They have a lot of clutter hitting them, so they don't put too much thought into everything. That they do. But people are great bullshit detectors. And they can see integrity in something from afar also. If something is coherent, it has integrity, all parts of this
seems thought through
and seem to be coming from one source. They don't seem to be disjointed. Also.
That's the brand experience.
That's the experience. And which is what we've come to internally, that the old school marketing machinery was the ability to make this 130-seconder ad film and the ability to media buy at the most efficient levels and then blast it and then do nothing else.
That works.
That works.
That used to work actually.
It used to.
For the longest time.
But today it's actually like I need a marketing team which can do 30 different things. I have to do events. I have to put a stall at an event. I have to write handwritten letters to some consumers. I have to do packaging. I have to do reels on social media. I also have to do some ads. I have to do performance marketing. There are like 50 different things of marketing muscle that needs to be built. It's not one ad banani aani chahiye, right? Like we back in the day we used to spend like a year crafting one film of 30 seconds. with agency and all angles being thought of and all of this happening. It's a waste.
In fact, I would say everything that you just mentioned as a laundry list, everything is actually part of performance marketing. It has to perform the primary attention of getting somebody's attention. Every single thing. So it's all performance marketing only.
And on this, I hate this random man-made distinction between performance and brand building. If
every brand building exercise is performance marketing.
Or by your definition, brand building is not performing.
Exactly.
Right?
Correct.
So, which is stupid. And everyone from VCs to everyone else will ask you, how do you know your brand building is working or not? So, mathematically, I have only one answer. I'm like, please take everything in your company that you call marketing, from brand building to sampling to this to that, put it all together, calculate ROAS, company top line divided by this.
Yeah, correct.
That number, if it is going up, then you're doing something
it's working.
right.
Correct.
If not, then please go and rethink your mix.
Correct. Because how can you just pinpoint one particular ad, did it work or not? It's not possible at all.
And,
even if you have a specific call to action in it, you can't blame that for saying it's working or not working at all.
Isolation of media was tough 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When there were only 3 media.
So even more difficult.
अब तो impossible है. At that time you could theoretically say मैंने radio बंद कर दिया, print बंद कर दिया, सिर्फ TV चलाया तो 6 महीने में ये हुआ. यहाँ पे
वो भी नहीं है. Exactly. You have all the funnels open all the time.
All the time.
So how do you isolate? You can't isolate at all.
Another extension to that though, given that media has become so difficult by itself, we used to be actually quite thoughtful and anal about regional media. And I know it's a pet peeve for you also, how people do, translations / transcribing.
Very poorly.
Very poorly, yeah, I agree. Do you see the need for doing that rising now, and then you have to do it across these 50 touch points? Because just converting a print ad, वो भी अभी ठीक से नहीं करते लोग.
Correct.
But just converting a print ad into Tamil or into Punjabi or into Bengali is like, what's the use? You have to do it over 50 different touch points, right? Like, if I could, I should have packaging which is different language.
Correct.
Or at least secondary packaging which is
also
language.
done by brands like Bisleri, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They have regional language packaging also in it.
Yeah.
But it's there.
So,
but it's there. There is a problem with transcribing / transliteration / translation.
Yeah.
There is a problem, particularly with pan-India advertising, which is the equivalent of pan-India films basically, because the idea is that you have all local stars from one state, but merely dubbing it in another language, will it succeed? Actually, it has succeeded for Telugu movies because the emotions are universal. The emotions in Telugu movies are very similar to Bhojpuri movies or Hindi movies, so they're doing very well. Yeah. So, and Allu Arjun is an equivalent star in Bihar and UP now, as much as, he's a very big star there, Allu Arjun, because Pushpa 1 was a phenomenal success all over India, and 2 ke liye he went to Patna and did a phenomenal event with thousands and lakhs of people. He just launched that movie there. So it's working really well. I mean, his Hindi is not that good, but he managed to speak in Hindi. Most people in India know Hindi to at least to save their lives. Utna to malum hai sab ko. So that's there. So, but in pan-India advertising, very few brands get the local nuances right. It's not merely of translation alone, because you can translate a sentence using Google translation or any translation service, but you won't get the emotion right. And very few brands like Zomato does it really well. Probably because they have somebody speaking that language, vetting it once, saying, does it sound good in our language? That really helps. But not all brands can afford to have one person in each language vetting it. And the right person, not a metro-centric person, but a person who has lived that language, saying that, this sounds good. That's not possible. So the base is that they use machine translation and go with it. Which generally cannot help at all, because if your intent is to break attention of somebody reading an English newspaper and then there is a local language sentence or a headline written in English script, which usually breaks attention because it doesn't sound like English and it doesn't sound like anything else, and you have written Tamil in English, is it? Okay, fine. But it has to make sense then. So you need to work doubly harder to ensure both the nuances are right and the language is right. So which is tougher, and most agencies don't care to work harder than
the one industry which has gotten exceptionally good at this is actually OTTs.
Subtitling.
The subtitles have gone from being like shit to amazing. Like they get the right idiom and then they find
in
the
local
parallel
language.
idiom in the local language and put it.
Correct. So even a person who doesn't understand Hindi at all
Yeah.
can understand what is implied in a sentence in a Hindi
Yeah.
or a Telugu, whichever it is. So it is fantastic. It's really good. So you should probably import people from there
there
into
into the
advertising,
yeah,
transliteration, but the
yeah.
money is not there. That's the problem.
Okay. Money is a
Correct. Money is the thing. You need to pay them well to do their jobs, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise they won't. So if you hire interns, you will get only machine language translation. Nothing else.
This is a
And these days interns are asked to pay also. They are not being paid. So that's another problem.
Yeah. Chalo, we won't go
Oh,
there.
bhi problem hai. We won't go there, of course. I mean, I love Zomato, of course.
Of course. No, in fact, that's a good segue into personal branding because
Yep.
more than
Dipinder's
anything,
personal branding,
I
yes.
found that to be a personal branding exercise.
Correct.
Right?
It
कि
is,
मैं तो
it
ऐसा ही
is.
हूँ
Correct.
कि मेरे साथ काम करना है तो मुझे पैसे दो तुम right I'm that good and I know you now spend a lot of your time doing workshops
Yep.
For corporates to do on how to do personal branding etc. First of all just give us a lay of the land होता क्या है personal branding और क्यों होता है
क्यों होता है? So it's the same thing like if you want to sell a product, you look at yourself as a product and are you saleable or not? Can you say the equivalent of man bites dog yourself through your own mouth or through your own social platforms or not? And you will ask saying, why do I need to do that? I am just a normal person going about my work. But you have things to offer to people, whether it's something that you offer as a professional service or to friends, you want to persuade somebody into something. We are all selling something at all times, literally, every time. Just the degrees of how much you're selling, what you're selling differs. Otherwise, we're all selling something, whether it's a thought or a product or something.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, personal branding helps. It helps that people are able to associate you with certain topics, and that comes from repetition, that comes from articulating your pitch better and better again and again. Most people don't consciously think of that. They just do it occasionally. When I say do it, they talk on LinkedIn occasionally or tweet occasionally and then move on in life. But I believe it can be done in a structured, thought-through manner. Again, the point is thought through. Are you thinking through what you're writing on Twitter or LinkedIn? Are you just blurting out whatever comes to your mind? My only version of personal branding is you think of every single presence like you do every single touch point thought through. I'm saying every single presence everywhere, how much ever you do, think it through. Why are you doing it? What does it add to you as an individual? That's personal branding, which is far different from the influencer model. In influencer model, you are engineering everything towards a specific purpose of making yourself attractive to brands and agencies. In personal branding, you don't care about brands and agencies, you don't care only about your storytelling exercise. That's personal branding.
But even here, there is that possibility that I can create a personal brand which isn't actually who I am.
True. Very true.
Does that work? Is that why a lot of people do it? Like, because you hear this conversation a lot, ki that's his persona online. You meet him in person, मैं उससे मिला and he was nothing like it.
Correct.
Talk more about that. Like,
so it can work to some extent. For instance, products are like that. You actually see a product from one particular brand. For instance, Cadbury's launched a less sweet version of their dairy milk, 20% less sweet kind of stuff. It's a complete anomaly from their entire repertoire, completely. So people don't associate less sweet with Cadbury's at all. It's called Meetha for a reason. They branded it Meetha at all. So you can try to sell 20% less sweet, but I don't think you see it in the stores anymore at all. Even I don't think even they don't want to be remembered about that product. So I would say that yes, you can put up a facade. You sell something else that you are not, but it will come and clash with your real persona because you live in a world and people notice you. So I have a pet theory for how to think about this even with the leaders that I'm working with. You have a specific anchor and you need to think saying if that anchor group reads your post or sees your post or video, would they think this is not the person that I met yesterday for lunch? So it can be anybody. For instance, for me, the anchor is my wife and kids. If they see something which they will eventually see, whether on LinkedIn or Insta, and they see this is not like my husband, this is not like my father, I wouldn't say that at all. They are my anchor. My audience is not my anchor. They are my anchor. If you're not married, it could be your immediate colleagues in your floor. If they see the person sitting there and on LinkedIn you sound very different and here, of course you might have used AI to write your text, they will know immediately that this is not the person. He is putting on a show or she is putting on a show. So always have an anchor. If you mess up that anchor, you are messing up your immediate surroundings, which is far worse. Trying to impress somebody who you don't know in the risk of completely alienating everybody around you, it's not worth it at all. So the anchor is very important in personal branding. In influencer marketing, that anchor goes out of the window. You don't need an anchor at all. All you do is sell. That's it.
And hence, personal branding done right is find one or two things about yourself, either traits or things that you know, and amplify those. Only then you can be
repetitively consistently amplify those again and again from various perspectives, so that people associate you with those topics. As simple. And it's not very different. For instance, there are magazine or newspaper columnists. You always associate them with saying, oh, that columnist who writes on, for instance, I think Santosh Desai does City City Bang Bang in Times of India. You always associate him, you don't associate him with brands and advertising anymore. You associate him as a columnist who writes about things that happen to us in the city kind of stuff. So there is same brand building. So he doesn't do it on LinkedIn. He does it on Times of India. Every Monday it comes predictably. That's there. You associate Manu Joseph with having a contrarian point of view on any and every single topic. That's what I associate with basically. So brand building happens all the time. They're all personal brands basically.
And I'm intrigued, why do corporates want you to come and teach this to their top management? What does the company intend to gain out of their top management being better at this game?
So it's basically people buy from people. People don't buy from brands or companies as much as they buy from, particularly in B2B space. It's all the more important because you're not an FMCG brand where you can outsource that brand to a brand itself. The person doing the selling is the brand, literally. I mean, there is a famous saying, you don't lose anything by buying from IBM. That used to be a statement back then.
You can't be fired.
You can't be fired for buying from IBM kind of stuff. So that used to be a very popular statement at one point. But even then, the people who sold that product made all the difference. You buy from people. And when I say buy, it's not buying from a product service point of view alone. It can also be hiring, which is a very important thing. People join because of a manager, not necessarily the brand alone. How's that person? You ask around saying, is that person good to work with? Colleagues. And all those things really matter. So personal brand matters a lot. And you can't just be talking about your companies and products, then you will sound like a brand brochure. You need to bring a shred of your personality
into it.
You're not exposing your entire life on LinkedIn or offline. I mean, I have this example of saying, imagine you live in a house with 100 windows. If you open all 100 windows and continue to live, you are living a 24/7 video stream, which nobody wants to do. There is zero privacy. But if you shut thoughtfully 95 windows and open only 5 selected windows and live through them, the people who live with you inside the house know you inside out because they live with you. But outside, whenever you pass through those 5 open windows, they see you and they get to know a shred of who you are. So it's a very controlled version of creating a persona. You're not lying. You're not faking. You're being exactly
showing
selective.
A part of you.
Incidentally, Bombay shaving company Shantanu wrote recently that they managed to crack Taj or some hotel with their products because it's usually Gillette. That's the default. Gillette and Colgates are the default. And Gillette, that single razor and one small pack, and it seems they have cracked that, which is a very good thing actually for somebody like Bombay Shaving Company to crack a Taj. It's a very big deal, because in terms of usage, it just explodes overnight.
And it's a big brand.
Correct.
Upward push. True. I'm sure that deal will not make money.
Correct. But at least from a premiumness and visibility point of view, it's a big deal.
That's another interesting discussion, that why do you normally find Bombay in the names of brands? So there's a Bombay shirt company, there's a Bombay shaving company, there's a Bombay salad company, right? But not a Delhi shave company or a, right? But Delhi you find in Delhi Darbar.
Correct.
Delhi Ka Zaika.
Correct.
Right? So there is, and Bangalore is in no name.
Correct.
Right? So Bangalore guys. But what does Bombay connote, that people want to use Bombay in the name and not Mumbai, right?
It's Bombay.
It's Bombay.
The older version. Mumbai doesn't come much.
Do you have a
I don't know, maybe the overall premiumness of Bombay being the financial capital and most aspiring people start with their aspirations in Bombay. So that's probably it. And I'm sure if you dig through, I'm sure every city will have its own local version which is not nationally popular. Bombay is probably the only one which is nationally popular, apart from Delhi Darbar.
When people want to cue the fact that their brand is premium, they use Bombay in the name. And I guess it is this, that Bombay was premium before
if
any
it
other
works
country.
in Bombay, it will work rest of
and
India,
it was
something
the
like
financial
that.
capital, rich people city.
Exactly, correct,
Place where,
correct.
because it was the port through which everyone came into the country.
Yeah.
Like,
Even outsiders came into the country. Kind
so
of stuff.
fashion, new things come into the country through this port.
Yeah.
So it really struck me that like suddenly I was like, Delhi, the name is only used in North Indian cuisine restaurants. Use Delhi to connote authenticity of the cuisine, but otherwise no one will use Delhi in their name.
Ironically, there is a world famous Madras equivalent, Madras checks. There is a specific check shirt which was very popular in the US. It's still very popular in the US. It's called Madras checks. There is an Ogilvy story also there. It seems the guy who imported that yarn with that color and etc., he couldn't sell his stock. And then Ogilvy was brought in saying, I have so much stock, you need to sell it. He created the famous campaign of a one-eye patch man. So he created a model where that one guy was wearing a very distinguished looking gentleman, but he was wearing an eye patch in one eye. For no particular reason other than the equivalent of man bites dog. It looks different and people notice the guy with the patch is wearing Madras checks. So Madras checks become popular and they're still very popular in the US. It had an inherent flaw. When you wash it, the colors bleed into each other and the checks go for a toss. So people stopped buying it. But this made it fashionable, saying Madras checks is the one where colors change and it looks different every time you wear it, every time after you wear it. So that what was perceived as a disadvantage eventually became a USP of the entire product, and that's Ogilvy's work. Literally.
That's such a madman story.
Total madman.
And that's what I will miss about this bygone era, that marketing campaigns, because you had the ability to reach people at scale and do things repeatedly, marketeers had the ability to actually convert a bug into a feature. And because
persuade
they knew
people to buy it.
Because they knew they had the persuasion skill and the media capability of
both together at the same time. So
Now
it's not just media alone, it's also the idea that goes into the media.
Yes.
Both together.
Like iconic print campaigns, I still keep going back to the copybook, and that's my favorite.
They're brilliant. Yeah, the headlines are so striking.
So striking.
Exactly.
Yeah, like some very expensive car company which wanted to showcase that we are for people who've reached a certain stage in life. Right? Like not everyone can afford us. Let's say it's a Porsche or a Ferrari or whatever. Right? Like they wanted to lean into the fact that you can't afford us until you've reached a certain stage in life. So they did a full front page ad which just said, "Young man, turn the page." Right? Like this is not for you. Right? It's unbelievable what copy, but unfortunately that era.
In fact, the Hindi version would be called "Young man, Rende." Delhi version. Teri bas ki nahi.
Your Hindi is not bad.
Grew up in Bhopal, that's why.
Oh. Nice. I'm going to go back to our personal branding conversation, and I'm going to use, now that I have you, as your time for a free consultation for myself.
Sure.
I have you captive, you can't go, so I'm going to leverage this situation. I am the face of my brand. So my personal brand is like intertwined with the whole truth as a brand.
True.
How should I think about it? Like there are examples of this having happened in the past. Some that I'm not very happy are those examples, and I get
true.
compared to those. But how should one think about it? Is this a good idea, bad idea? What's your take on this?
No, it's okay. It's an okay idea. There is no good or bad in this. So let me just show you a couple of examples of other brand leaders or brand founders and their personal brand. So Dipinder Goyal is a good example of a Zomato-centric personal brand. He doesn't have a point of view on anything and everything. He just has a point of view on things that immediately affect Zomato. And he does it very often, generally. He's also made a lot of mistakes, gone back on his decisions, but all of that he usually does it very openly. For instance, the green-red wala mess that happened, or that there was some character from Lagan where they tried something from an inclusiveness, but it went completely haywire. So all that, they made a mistake, but he was open enough to talk about the mistakes he made also openly, saying, yes, we goofed, we didn't have the right filters to go through it, I'm sorry about it, let's move on in life, kind of. So he does that. Most leaders don't do the latter part. They just do it silently and move on, expecting people to forget. People remember only the thing that went bad. They should also remember that he said sorry. And he should say sorry, kind of. That's one level. Arindam Paul of Attenberg is another level. He does speak about Attenborough very often. But he also has a lot of points of view on overall sales, direct to market brands, performance marketing. He does a lot of stuff, which is nothing to do with Attenborough per se at all. So he has a lot of point of view there. That's another kind of level. Shantanu of Bombay Shaving Company is a third level. He has a point of view in anything and everything. And which is completely not to do with Bombay Shaving Company at all. Also like Sridhar Vembu of Zoho. He has a point of view of things that affect us as a country, as a civilization, identity and etc. So those are trickier. And you need to be conscious of which areas are you having a point of view often and more consistently, and then have that overall. So it's almost like you thinking of your own content plan. People think brands ke liye content plan chahiye, but even for personal branding, you need a content plan and an outlay. Saying, if I own this brand, I need to speak about this brand 30% of the time. I need to speak about one of my personal interests 30% of the time. I need to speak about something else 30 to 40% of the time. So you always think of this map before you open your mouth online. And then think saying, is it worth doing it for my brand? If it fits into whatever you're trying to say, yes, do it. If it doesn't fit, think twice, why are you wasting your time and your audience time? So that's the conscious thing. If you do only one, that is you over-index only for your brand, then people will just look at you as the brand's brochure, nothing else. However much you do it well, they will think saying, Dipinder was Zomato wala. But with Shantanu, they will think, of course he has made a lot of bloopers, that's a different thing, but they will still know that he has a point of view on a lot of things around him, not just Bombay Shaving Company alone. But that comes with a lot of risks, because you need to think through what you're saying on things that affect people very differently. Bombay Shaving Company doesn't affect people. But having a point of view on education quality in India or the society's hierarchical problems comes with a lot of baggage. So you need to really think through. Most leaders don't want to get into that mess at all. They stick to their brand alone, simply.
But thinking of it from a business point of view, see, I don't know what the motivations of these four gentlemen are, why are they doing it, right? But let's assume that part motivation is the betterment of their business, right? From that point of view, isn't the Shantanu approach a lot riskier?
It is.
Right?
It is.
Because I am not clear on what the upside is. That
Correct.
If Shantanu has a point of view on education, will I buy razors from him? I don't know.
You won't.
Right? But chances are that, if it's not something you're living day in and day out, which razors are, you're living that day, and hence your point of view on that particular part of the world has high chance that it'll have depth. Right? But education, you're not living day in and day out.
Correct.
Chances are you don't have context, and someone will call out, but have you thought about this? You didn't think about this, you haven't thought about this, etc. Isn't in the upside downside framework the upside limited but downside quite large in this approach?
It is, but again think of it the other way around. If you think through it and provoke people to think positively in a direction, it can make news. And whatever Shantanu says, particularly the bad ones, makes news.
So attention grabbing happens.
Attention grabbing happens. Again, as I said, it has to be in service of something. Not necessarily selling your product, but at least staying in news. Dipinder is a very good example of staying in news in service of food and food related topics. Every single thing he says, it's related to food. And Zomato is in the space of food. Now also in events, so he needs to say something to events also. But food is the overall umbrella under which he operates and says. It's not as if he is engineering what he says. It's who he is as an individual. That's it. You cannot fake that actually. So it just shows. His anchor is probably entire world, because everybody relates to food as an individual. So it makes sense for him. So and there is risk, of course.
And in my case, it's different from all of these cases, because I am actually the face of the brand. I am in my own advertising. How does that change the game? Does it?
It should actually, because you affect the brand in a way that these guys don't, because Dipinder is not in their ads, Attenborough, Arindam is not in their ads, Bombay Shaving
None
Company.
of them are,
He's actually a very bad example of the ad. Of course, he can also be a good example. They also sell other products to grow hair and remove hair, everything that works. But that's there. But in your case, it's intricately related to both. Another good example that I can think, at least earlier, was Indigo's CEO, Ghosh.
Oh, Aditya
Ghosh. So he didn't talk about Indigo or anything. Now he doesn't talk about Akasa or his food related businesses and etc. But he has cultivated an image which comprises of few elements very specifically. One, he's very passionate about new businesses, encouraging people to do their own entrepreneurship business, women in business and etc. He's very passionate about horses, golfing. He's passionate about his family, and he's very passionate about his health. Most of his videos on Instagram was about him hitting the gym.
Super
literally
fit,
very fit and incredibly passionate and consistent about fitness. That's his zone. He doesn't talk about business. Very rarely he speaks about business. So he's not the face. In your case, if you are the face, you need to have certain contours of me doing business for my brand, me doing or me living my life on specific things, not everything, but 2 or 3 things, so that people are able to look at you and connect with you at a human level, not just as a business founder level, but a business founder who likes butterflies, a business founder who likes weekend photography. And those parts are humanly accessible and very relatable. The businessman is not humanly relatable. You're just a businessman and leader. It doesn't matter at all. You would think the product is relatable, but healthy products are not relatable to most Indians because they eat whatever that comes their way. So you need to be slightly more relatable at that level. So the human level really helps. Think through it.
I'll tell you the way first of all, it came very naturally to me that, if I'm building a brand that stands for the truth, then it honestly can only come from me. Right? Like otherwise, because every facade you put up of a celebrity or someone else is actually an abstraction of the truth, right? Like it's not the truth. So who can say it with more conviction than the man, who's doing it? And since we are without any value judgment, we have a lot of value, like values. Like we are a very value oriented, and the main value being honesty. It's a high risk approach, but that's who I am. Like I want you to know that you'll get 100% honesty from
which is literally your man bites dog equivalent. Because it stands out in a world of people not caring enough to disclose what goes into making it their product.
Food, and then we as we realized through the journey that honesty is about, like, transparency is a big part of it. And you will trust me if I say, listen, I'm naked. Come in and see everything. Right? Like see the person behind it, see the facility behind it, see the people behind it, see everything, and come in. But of course, like everyone keeps reminding me, it's also a single point of failure, right? Like if I do some shit in my life,
finished,
then it's gone.
So I'm glad your name is not and nothing anymore. It's the whole truth. It's a much better, more evocative than and nothing, actually.
That's true. And maybe so when people ask me that, aren't you worried that you've put yourself on such a high pedestal that now one mistake and you'll be dead? I think, and I'd love you.
I think it will be the other way around. People would give you a chance. For instance, people give Zomato's Dipinder a chance because he has said sorry, like normal humans. He has goofed up and said sorry. So people will still see through and look at that recent hiring as saying it's PR, blah blah, etc. But more people actually give him a chance. Few people don't give him a chance. More people give him a chance. But the
necessary condition for that is when you fuck up, you have to own up.
Correct. You have to. And you have to own up openly.
Don't do this, that, etc.
Exactly. Don't do PR exercise around it. Say sorry. Yes.
Our articulation of it is, listen, we named ourselves the whole truth, not the perfect. Right? So we are human. We will make mistakes. But we will be the whole truth about the mistakes also.
Correct.
Right? And if you find us lacking on that, then we've screwed up.
Correct. Exactly. Correct. Which is the base itself.
And in your experience of the industry, how many of the people we spoke of and many others, how many of them are actually working with someone to craft this, and how many of them do you think are just winging it and doing it themselves?
Most of the examples that I gave you are completely on their own. They don't do something with a team kind of stuff. There are few people with teams, but it generally shows, because when it's a team or committee created content, even a LinkedIn post, it looks like it has gone through multiple filters, like a PR team or a Corpcom team or a content team kind of stuff. So it shows. Generally, actual content comes through genuinely, the kind of words used. It would be a phenomenally good team where you have a team and still looks like the leader's content. And for that, you need to have a really good team that thinks like the leader himself or herself. So I don't think most leaders do that. But I do know that most of the old world company leaders who are not comfortable with social media at all, they still think my Corpcom team will write content, I just need to post it. Most of the younger leaders, startup founders, They don't want to. They completely go the other direction. It has to be me.
Yeah.
But again, they make the same mistakes. They expose way too much. They open 50 windows. Instead of opening only 5 windows, they open 50 windows. You don't need to do that at all. The 50, 100 windows, it's for people you love and live with. Or you work with every single day. For the rest of the world, strangers, 5 windows is enough, actually.
I love this window example. This 50 window thing suddenly made me realize it's such a bad idea for both parties, because I don't want to be seen in my underwear and you don't want to see me in my underwear.
Correct. Right? It's called TMI, too much information.
It's a bad idea for everyone to open 50.
Correct. Don't do that at all. Exactly.
Got it. I also want to, because we spoke of influencer marketing in the same on the same spectrum as personal branding, and you said no, it's a completely different thing.
Two opposites.
And you know, one of the reasons why I instantly fell in love with you without having ever met you is when I read your bio, it said my words are not for sale. And you know, that's been a massive reason why we usually don't do any influencer marketing. We're like, this is just like celebrity advertising.
Correct. You pay, you get it.
You pay and you will say anything.
It's called media buying.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
It's media buying now.
Correct.
It's, when we went to market first time, you know, once we raised money, hum bhi karenge influencer marketing. Instead of a person, we got a rate card.
Correct.
That these many followers, this is the rate.
Whether you have an Aadhaar card or not, rate card to must hai aajkal.
And then they will say anything that
of course.
you want them to say. Yet it seems to work.
Yeah, it does work.
Why?
There is a reason for it.
Yeah. Why?
The reason is, like media worked, when you watch an ad, you don't question whether it's been paid for. You know implicitly it's been paid for. And with influencers, the line is a bit grey. It's only now that ASCI is coming down, I mean, within whatever powers they have, limited powers, they're coming down saying disclosures are a must. But even then, most people know that one influencer is posting something without being an actual user, and they don't have the capability or the qualification to call it out as good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't believe that needs to be a qualification. For instance, a food blogger can talk about a car as a user. That's not her
influencers
domain
का
at all.
retort to that is शाहरुख खान को साबुन के बारे में पता
Exactly,
है क्या?
exactly. Shah Rukh Khan would never use a small car from Hyundai at all.
कोई
So it
chance
doesn't
नहीं
matter
है,
at all.
Sachin
Exactly.
Tendulkar is doing Sariya का ad.
It doesn't matter at all. Exactly, absolutely. So same thing basically happens with influencers also. So where it actually helps is in terms of visibility. So now, as I said, there is no media monoculture. You can't just expect TV to do the heavy lifting in terms of broad visibility and awareness. You need 20 different influencers to do the same thing for you. So it's not about credibility. Credibility ke liye you need user level influencers or expert level influencers, like the Dr. Whitecoat's equivalent.
When it started for credibility, right?
It started for credibility, but now it's become
It was the answer to celebrity.
Correct. Now it's become like television advertising. You just bombard the internet with 20 different influencers saying the same thing about your product. You know that the product exists.
Yeah.
You still don't know whether it's good or not, but you know it exists. So that really helps.
And hence, what ASCII is doing needs to be 10x, because still that information asymmetry exists, that many people are consuming it for credibility. When there is no credibility left.
It's just for visibility, it's being used. Correct.
But many people are, and see, influencer is, I was reading some survey that some 30-40% kids nowadays saying becoming an influencer is their profession of choice. Hence, it's a means of livelihood.
It's a big deal now.
Right? And anyone who crosses 5K, 10K suddenly wants to know कि मेरा rate क्या है, मेरे को कितना मिलेगा.
Correct.
So, but I was following someone who was at 5,000. There is now actually the only signal of authenticity is low followership. You know, this 3,000-4,000 guy most probably is not monetized.
Correct.
So
he will say or she will say something that comes to their mind naturally. Without being influenced by money.
But the minute they cross 5 or 10 or 15, whatever that number is.
Hashtag ad. Hashtag collab.
It starts. And I love the fact that ASCII intervened, but I think we need to do a lot more, because I think there is still this information asymmetry that is being played upon.
True.
Because if it had become pure media, the costs would have dropped far more.
Correct, exactly.
The per eyeball cost is still much higher than mass media,
that
because brands are building in a cost that they're paying for getting higher consideration because a influencer is
but ironically it's being used only for visibility now, because people don't trust influencers as much as they trust actual credible voices, and for that you need to be an expert or somebody who knows, who has used the product. But I think it can become a lot more insidious in the future, because right now we're just thinking about influencers' presence on a social media platform. Imagine if influencers are being paid for propagating a product or a service in their offline circles, which is what the cigarette companies did earlier. They actually seeded college students with free products and said, go and talk to your friends about this being a great after your run, which is not good at all after.
Red Bull still does it.
Exactly, correct. So they equal it. So imagine if the brand knows that you move in the right page 3 circles. And then pays you to talk about it offline. You can't even track it. You cannot even add a hashtag collab after saying, I mean, imagine you're talking to 10 of your friends who are all super rich and you say something and say hashtag collab. That sounds very awkward. So you won't say hashtag collab at all. So they wouldn't even know that what is being said in a very conversational manner is being influenced by money.
Motivated.
Exactly, correct. So it can become a lot more insidious in the future. So we are heading towards very strange times.
Yeah, all of this talk always brings me back to the final answer is you have to we live with generalizations in 90% of all parts of our life because we don't have the time to do research on
Sift
everything,
through it.
right?
Correct.
And hence we have these influencer friends in our circles, right? Like there is a travel influencer friend who I ask कि अभी Sri Lanka जाना है तो बता दे यार. Like you told me a great hill station that I'm going to check out, and I know like this fellow is not doing it for any money, and I am that expert on food in my circle. People know that he will not sell his opinion. I think it's going to go to that only, that I'm going to trust
very
only
few
these
people.
guys.
Yeah, correct.
And be like learning how to be constructively skeptical of anything that you
question everything.
Question everything, but question everything is also not very practical, right?
True, because you don't have the time. Exactly.
Brands were born as a byword for trust.
Correct.
That once I've,
name hai na,
Tata likha hai, wo
naam hi kafi hai. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a very, very strange time.
It is. It is very strange.
The job of being a good consumer is tougher than tougher than ever.
It's actually very time consuming now to be a good consumer.
We think that because information has become democratized because of the internet, it should be easier, but it's more difficult.
Because there is so much information to consume.
So much information. And both sides of the debate, just like in elections, it becomes clear that if I want to be X party focused, I will get only
that news,
media.
Nothing
if
else.
I want to be Y,
it will become a tunnel.
The same is going to happen with.
Hopefully, AI will help sift through that noise.
But it will add to the noise also.
I know, add to the noise also. But early days, basically, it's almost like feeding a PDF and say, give me the top 5 points. Similarly, you ask saying, is this influencer credible? AI should be able to answer at some point in the future.
But we will also have to learn to ask the question of saying,
right kind of questions.
Show me the stuff that I am not being shown.
Yeah.
Right? Because everything is converging towards showing me what I want to see.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
Just this education and knowledge that as a consumer you must also ask, show me the stuff that I am not being shown.
Exactly.
And create an alternate feed.
For me that also. At this point there is nothing like that at all. It's all algorithm demanded.
How long did you work at Flipkart, Karthik?
Flipkart was only one plus years basically. It was in 2012-13.
The long stint was Ogilvy.
Ogilvy 5. Subex was a software product company in Bangalore, telecom software. That was about 6.5.
Okay.
So then PR agencies. Ogilvy was 5 last.
I want to know your favorite campaign that you worked on.
That would be in Ogilvy. There was an IBM campaign of all the things, because IBM is such a boring company. Nobody thinks of IBM when it comes to exciting advertising. Of course, they have done a lot of interesting advertising. So we did a campaign around the World Cup in 2014 or 15 or 16, one of the years when there was a cricket World Cup. And it's a B2B company. So how can you sell IBM of all the things? So they had a data analytics segment that they want to sell to C-suite. For basically the thing is that if we can derive fantastic data out of this, imagine what we can do for your company and data. We can derive kind of. So we used cricket data, and then we were able to tell immediately in the evening saying who's likely to win based on the past data. These days it's become commonplace.
Yeah.
But we did it in one of the earlier days. We tied up with Wisden. They had the data. So IBM went through the data and decided saying which player is likely to play well,
Wow.
who's likely to win, etc. Whether it worked or not is a different thing, but you are able to say that. The basic idea was that even C-suites are humans. They like cricket like most other Indians. So they want to know if IBM can create meaningful information out of complex data in cricket. Imagine what it can do with my billing data or my customer data. It can show something.
This is very interesting. Talk me through the process. Like, what was the brief from the client, and then how did it translate into someone from the advertising agency saying, "Listen, I am going to actually go back to Wisden, get data, and show the power of this product."
Wisden came much later. The brief was make us relevant to a C-suite.
Interesting.
Right?
So-
the basic thing is we are not able to enter the C-suite's door at all. They just don't want to listen to one more pitch of a data analytics company.
Got it.
Everybody is trying to sell data analytics.
Got it.
We are able to sell to the minions below, but we are not able to open the C-suite's door.
Got it.
How
So make
can
us
you
relevant to the C-suite is the
C-suite.
business objective.
Correct. So our first insight was that C-suites are also humans.
Yeah.
They love cricket like most other people in India.
Interesting.
They may not watch it like the rest of the people. They don't have the time, but they keep track of the score on their phones very often because it's a World Cup and they keep on seeing who's winning, who's losing,
Yeah.
how's India doing kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So feed into that need and interest for cricket and open the window through cricket into data analytics. So you start opening the window for saying, do you know what we can do with cricket data? And saying, oh yeah, I didn't know that at all. Then imagine if we can do that for cricket, imagine what we can do for
But
business.
as someone sitting in the advertising agency, how did you have a visualization of what IBM can do even if the data existed?
We had no clue at all. We had to ask IBM saying, do you have data on cricket? They said, we don't have. So we need to find a partner. Wisden is a partner that has the data. So you bring both basically. So earlier there was nothing at all. There was no cricket, there was no Wisden, there was nothing. The only brief was open C-suite doors. How do you open? By thinking of C-suites as normal human beings interested in cricket. Instead of looking at their business persona and business mind, look at it from a human point of view. So that's advertising insight basically. Treat your customers as humans, you will open a lot more doors to them basically, which is literally what we did. It's common sense, but common sense is the most uncommon sense.
But isn't it a very wasteful method that there are 100, 200, 1000 C-suite?
Yeah.
In
All the
the
more
country,
difficult actually
and
because we are not
you-
able to open even their doors.
No, but you are showing advertising to 10 crore people to actually reach 1000 people. Isn't that wasteful?
But we didn't advertise. We actually did it as a very specific exercise. So the advertising was for the broader segment. We did advertise, but not on TV. It was on print and online only basically, and then through social media handles. That was for the broader understanding of 2 levels below or 3 levels below, saying all these people are seeing that IBM data crunching is good.
Yeah.
But when we did the direct marketing exercise to C-suite later, it was not saying, do you know IBM has a great data analytics team? It's not about that at all. Do you know what we have done with the World Cup data? And then they say, oh, World Cup cricket, they're talking about cricket. Why are they talking about cricket? Let me see what they've done. Oh, they've done all this. Is it okay? If they can do this for cricket data, which is so complex and multi-dimensional, imagine what they can do with 10 different feeds of my company data. It can probably be
And
helpful.
this direct marketing was through the B2B channels that IBM already
Exactly.
had.
So instead of the marketing guy speaking about digital analytics,
Very interesting.
he or she starts talking about World Cup cricket.
Wow.
And the C-suite is
That
already,
is
which
man-
is
man
equal,
bites
which
dog.
is exactly
That
the
is
man
man.
bites
Yeah,
dog
yeah,
equal.
yeah. That
As
is
simple
man.
as.
Very nice.
That's I think.
Love it. Brilliant. Awesome. Karthik, we have a segment where the team has selected some ads
Oh, is it? Okay.
that I haven't seen.
Okay.
Both of us will see it together.
Wonderful.
And we are supposed to then get into the minds of the marketeers behind them and figure out what the hell were they thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll move on to that
Sure.
segment.
Yep.
Do we have the ads? I have not seen this ad, dude.
I remember saying vaguely. Yeah. I know how it ends.
Oh, बच्चा You'll have to go first.
I know. So it's definitely attention grabbing because it's a very unusual starting point of a local, local street level entertainer trying to do something and a family coming. That's not something you see in an insurance ad generally. But I think it's over indexing on the exaggeration. It's really exaggerating for a thing. For instance, anything can happen in life within the context of insurance is an accident or a medical emergency or need for money for a school, overseas trip, whatever it is. That's the anything can happen in life grounded version of insurance. That's when you need money and insurance. Here it over indexes with a completely exaggerated extreme situation for anything can happen in life. So which makes a great story. But like the cred equivalent, would you remember PNB MetLife? I just happened to see it, so I remember PNB MetLife. Would you remember PNB MetLife or that ad where a man became a kabutar and flew away? You will stop there, then there is a problem. So you need to come to a middle point saying, can they also remember PNB MetLife somehow? Is there a way that I can make them remember? So it's a great entertaining ad. But ads are not movies. They still need to sell a product sadly. Or at least remind you of a product sadly. Not sell, remind you.
I have 2-3 points, some contrarian to what you're saying. So I actually think the device that they use, one of the problems with selling insurance, it's very sad and doomsday.
Very boring.
Right? Like,
Correct.
Boring is the best case. It makes you feel bad. Koi mar gaya, kisi
Fear
ki टांग
inducing.
कट गई, fear inducing.
Correct.
And usually it's been sold like that only कि सोचो आज तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स अगर हॉस्पिटल में हैं और तुम्हारे पास पैसा ही
Which
नहीं
was
है.
an LIC ad.
Which was the LIC ad. Which is a very sad.
जिंदगी के साथ भी जिंदगी के बाद भी. Oh my God, come on.
Exactly, right? So I loved that they found a device
which is
to
fun.
say the same thing but in a fun way. That it's not a doomsday scenario being painted. I think that's a like what a great sleight of hand.
True. It's entertaining because of that,
to do that, right? Second thing where I do agree is that see insurance even today I think has less than 10% penetration in the country.
Correct.
Right? So
it's a huge amount waiting for to be explored.
So just like for mutual funds, the industry should and in some places is coming together to say let's pool in our marketing monies to actually grow insurance.
Correct.
All of us will grow.
And not just one brand, the category itself.
Category itself. Because all of us will grow. The headroom for category is 95%, right? So there's no point. By that logic, this, if it was an insurance ad,
it would be
I
very,
would
very
love
good.
it.
Because you don't need to remember a particular brand. You need to remember insurance. At the point. Correct.
Yeah. If they had done this like mutual fund sahi hai, all of you come together and sell mutual fund.
Correct. Create a series of extraordinary situations where
anything can
happen in life.
Take insurance.
It has to be an industry campaign, not a
Then I would think it would be amazing. Like I would just bow my hat to this guy.
Correct.
But just because you're right, PNB का इसमें कुछ नहीं था.
You will
ना मेरे को
forget
इससे पहले की PNB की कोई ad याद है ना किसके बाद की. So I don't know the PNB thread.
Correct.
In this.
But interestingly, just to point out, because you're saying about industry coming together and advertising, there are very few brands that created an industry in India. In the case of mutual funds, it was association that created mutual funds, not individual. But e-commerce is one of those rare brands where Flipkart did the heavy lifting for selling e-commerce itself. Of course, there was a brand Flipkart at the end. But all the kids as adults, the entire series was not necessarily to sell Flipkart alone. They were selling bare minimum e-commerce features. If you put money, you will get your money back. It will come to you within 2 days, whatever it is. You won't lose money. Even old people can buy with confidence. That's not Flipkart centric. They were actually selling e-commerce as a category. And now everybody is gaining from that basically.
But category creation is exceptionally tough.
True.
It takes, I don't know, billions of dollars over tens of years.
Correct. In their case, they did it in their own interest. But they did both. They created a category and they created Flipkart also at the same time.
When you are the market leader, you have the license and the right to try category creation because when the category grows, most of the gains will come to you.
Correct.
Right? PNB is not that.
True. Definitely
so even them trying to grow insurance alone is a stupid idea because most of the gains will go to LIC.
Correct.
What's the point of...
Exactly. That's what people will remember.
Yeah. But otherwise, and purely from a storytelling point of view, this is excellent. Like what...
This is the kind of thing that you will tell people, have you seen this ad?
And there's so many points in the film where I was like, imagining next क्या होगा.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't
And you can't
think,
guess the end at all.
I actually didn't think. First I thought अच्छा ये कबूतर बनेगा ही नहीं. कुछ और like वो बन गया. Like fuck ये क्या है? Initially
Magical realism.
हाँ.
हो गया बस.
हो गया. And like fuck अब क्या होएगा?
Exactly.
तो बन गया कबूतर.
कुछ नहीं होगा. That's the problem.
बहुत सही. चलो बढ़िया. Okay. Okay, I can go first.
Yes, please.
In
Go
this.
ahead.
And I have because this is so abstract, I have a very abstract take on this. The main line is copy nothing.
Correct.
Right? I have a feeling that there is some industry insider context that the top team at Jaguar had, that other people are copying everyone else's designs and our cars look completely unique and hence we must stand for not copying. And they gave a brief to make an ad on copy nothing when consumers just don't have that context.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
there is some insider context here which
कुछ तो है.
the top team
Knows.
because they are in the industry, they know, but I just don't fucking have that context.
Correct.
So
you're seeing it without the context.
without the context, I am like, क्या?
Yeah.
मतलब एक तो कार ही नहीं है.
Correct. Exact. To start with. Yeah.
And I don't know ये वाला doubt बाकियों को हुआ कि नहीं. इंडिया में तो एक बाथवेयर ब्रांड भी है जैगुआर नाम का.
Correct.
तो मैंने तो जब पहली बार ही देखी
ये तो उसका ऐड है.
ये वॉश बेसिन वाला जैगुआर है या
क्यों नहीं दिखा रहे वॉश बेसिन?
हाँ, या ये गाड़ी वाला जैगुआर है. एंड एक्चुअली आई वुड इवन टुडे आई वुड से दैट अगर ये वॉश बेसिन वाला होता तो मेरे को ज़्यादा समझ में आता बिकॉज वो they're trying to sell a lot of designer stuff,
colorful stuff दिखा रहे हैं.
ये वाला
Correct,
कलर
correct.
वाला वॉश बेसिन
Correct. ये तो गाड़ी बेच रहे हैं.
ये तो गाड़ी. So yeah, मतलब this was apart from that, this is the stupid extreme of इतना bizarre है कि बात तो हो रही है.
हाँ, correct.
Like we are talking about it.
True.
And,
Everybody has talking
everyone
about
is
it. In
talking
fact,
about
there
it.
is anybody who is somebody needs to have a point of view
Needs
on
to have a
Jaguar.
point of view
Correct.
on-
Without that, you can't live with all kind of
Yeah,
stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a point of view at all. I just saw it and it looked colorful, and I knew it's a teaser. So कुछ और आने वाला है. So I thought I'll wait for next क्या होने वाला है. उसके बाद थोड़ा बात करेंगे और उसके बाद I will try to form an opinion. अभी के लिए I don't want to form an opinion at all. It's too early to form an opinion. Let them show something, then I will form an opinion.
But tell me something, do teasers work?
It depends. Actually, depends on. For instance, this teaser, I would say it's extraordinarily successful.
Yeah.
Towards what we don't know.
We don't know.
Because only when they launch the subsequent reveal, then we will know whether it's working.
But how do you know it's a teaser? Like they have not said any such thing. You're just
They
assuming.
said it's a teaser.
Oh,
they have not
did,
done.
is
It's
it?
phase 1 literally.
But said where?
Everywhere on interviews and etc. As follow up when people criticize saying ये क्या हो
But
रहा है,
not
गाड़ी
in the
नहीं दिखा
teaser
रहा है.
itself.
Correct.
Ideally, the teaser should say I'm a teaser, right? Like
Correct.
that
But because there is
something's
no
coming.
cars, it's supposed to be a teaser. Because Jaguar is a car company, they will have to show car eventually. दिखाना तो पड़ेगा ही. So
Basically,
they will.
They thought
basically.
consumers will understand we can't be this stupid, but consumers are like, no, they seem like you're.
Exactly. But I read more context about it just to form my opinion about a teaser. It seems their sales are at an all-time low. From the JLR stable, this is doing extraordinarily badly. Their company is doing very badly. So anything seems like an upside if people are actually talking about it. Even housewives have a point of view on this ad. Who would have never thought of Jaguar as a car at all? Who would never buy a Jaguar eventually anyway? That's a different thing. But they have become the Coca-Cola equivalent of cars. Suddenly everybody is talking about Jaguar for all the wrong reasons, of course. So hopefully, I'm just hoping that the product is so good.
Yeah.
Even though I can't afford it, or most people don't even want to buy that car in India, so it doesn't even make sense to buy that car. But they will probably, the product is good enough to justify this level of a bizarre teaser that the whole world has a point of view about.
So
Let's
if you were them, then you would bring out the real ad thing, whatever, quickly, right? Like capitalize on this, or let it die down and bring it after 2 months. And
Probably let it die down. Let as many people go and have a go at it as much as possible. जो करना है करो.
करो.
Jump on my car also. It doesn't matter. Jump on my brand, jump on my grave. Please jump. Because if the product is good enough, then it can actually spur a very different level of conversation. So don't do knee-jerk reactions of launching because everybody is talking about it negatively. Hold on to it. But if the product is bad, nothing can say, it will become even worse. Plants will grow on your grave then. Uske baad you're dead. Hopefully there is something in the product.
In the product. Hopefully there is a product.
There is a product. Hopefully there's a product. They have spent a lot of money on this. And
yeah.
they are sitting on such captive attention on the brand right now. It is phenomenal. 2 weeks ago, nobody even considered thinking about Jaguar, the brand, for anything. If you say Jaguar, they will think of the animal, not the car. Or in India, they will think of bathroom fittings and light fittings. Or kuch nahi. But now, everybody has a point of view. Wo colorful woke wala ad, that's what you're talking about? That's what everybody's talking about.
With the last frame, only that rock remains.
Yeah.
And this is the second time I'm seeing the ad. I was looking at that rock and like,
it will change into a car or something. It looks like a car, no? It looks long. It looks horizontal and long. Kuch to hoga, hopefully. So I'm guessing something will happen. So I'm thinking reasonably the agency and the brand knows what they're doing, but they probably didn't anticipate the level of skepticism and negativity. People went pounding after the brand. Even with no context at all, which is okay. It's an opinion.
They didn't give context.
So, exactly. Probably it's intentional. But they didn't expect this level of anger. I mean, you don't need to be angry about a teaser, yeah. It's a teaser that doesn't even matter to you at all.
That is a comment on society and people being vela. It's been a pleasure, Karthik. I had super fun chatting about this with you. There's so few people with whom one can have a deep marketing-led conversation where we can go from people becoming kabooters to the philosophy of whether marketeers are manipulators and whether as society we need to do something about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, had a wonderful time. And I should say I'm a big fan of your products. Way particularly actually. And the number of people that I've converted saying, please look at the ingredients and buy. They're all very surprised because it's very easy to buy into a way because there are hundreds of brands. On Amazon you try way, 100 comes. There are very few that seem to want to be honest about ingredients, and very few products across product categories that want to be. Akshay Kalpa is one. They want to be honest about their ethos and etc. So the honesty is a good platform to own, provided it's consistent with the product ingredients and product stories also. So it's nice.
Provided it's a philosophy, not a platform.
Correct. Exactly. it lives through the product, not just the words, by words alone.
Thank you so much. That made my day.
Sure.
Pleasure.
Wonderful.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Karthik. This is super fun.